all mad, had the fever and had it bad. Just to root for the hometown crew, every Sue, Katie Blue. On a Saturday, her young beau called to see if she'd like to go to see a show, but Miss Kate said no. I'll tell you what you can do. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Well, Browns fans, here we are in the bottom of the 8th. And young Joe DiMaggio steps up to the plate to face Strickland. The Yanks have been hitting this young right-hander from Ray City, Georgia pretty good since he relieved Hogsett in the 4th. DiMaggio doubled off the kid back in the 6th. Here's the windup. And the pitch. A sinking low curveball for a called strike. Joe looked back at the ump and gave a shake of his head. I guess he thought it wasn't that close. DiMaggio is in his 2nd year with the Yanks and already making a name for himself here in the league. Joe steps back into the box. Here's the windup. And the pitch. Another curve for a called strike. That one looked like it got a little more off the corner. Strickland leans into Heath to get the signal. Shakes it off. Now he's ready. Here's the windup. And the pitch. Swing and a miss, strike 3. DiMaggio goes down swinging on 3 straight pitches. I think Joe thought that Strickland was going to come back with another curveball, and Joe was laying back waiting for it. And the big right-hander blew a fastball right past him. Look at that, would ya? The fans are giving the kid a standing ovation. Now that just might make the newspapers in Ray City, Georgia. How their hometown boy just struck out Joe DiMaggio.
William Goss Strickland was born March 29, 1908, in Berrien County, Georgia, on the family farm near Ray City. He was the second of 5 children, and the oldest son born to John and Annie Devane Strickland. Shortly after Bill's birth, the family moved to Fort Meade, Florida, where John Strickland was engaged in the grocery business. In 1913, Bill's father showed an interest in buying an orange grove near Fort Meade. While his father inspected the grove with the owner, Bill recalled walking under the branches of the orange trees at the age of 5, unaware he would spend over 50 years of his life in the citrus industry. However, the grove owner refused to sell out. Disappointed, John Strickland moved his family back to Berrien County in the new Lois community. They moved to a farm near the original Devane family homestead, located 7 miles south of Nashville on the Old Valdosta Road. Bill was enrolled at the King's Chapel 3-room schoolhouse, a 3-mile walk each way from the Strickland farm. He received his entire education through 8th grade at this rural schoolhouse. His favorite escape from the chores of farm life was his love of sports, especially baseball. Weekend games in Ray City offered him an opportunity to test his abilities. He was a gifted ball player. In 1923, Bill attended Nashville High School in the old public school on Washington Street. He immediately became a valued member of the baseball and basketball teams. In his senior year, he was a member of the 1926 Nashville State Tournament team. After graduating from high school, Bill enrolled at the South Georgia A&M College, now known as Abraham Baldwin, or ABAC. For the next 2 years, he played basketball and baseball for the South Georgia A&M Rams. In the summer of 1927, Bill and 2 other players from A&M landed jobs in Daytona, Florida with the Halifax Creamery and played baseball for the company team. While playing with the Halifax team, Strickland heard about the semi-pro team in Cocoa, Florida. So the end of the school year in 1928, he again headed for Florida. That spring and early summer, he played on the Cocoa team until the league ended. He then headed back to Georgia where he got on the Douglas team of the Brightleaf Tobacco League and finished out the summer. In the fall of 1928, Bill transferred to Georgia Tech on a full scholarship to play basketball and baseball for the Yellow Jackets. However, No record can be found that he ever played a basketball game for them. In his first baseball season with the Yellow Jackets, in the spring of 1929, he was plagued with illness and injury. When a hard-line drive hit him in the ankle, he had to be carried off the field, ending his season. He started the 1930 season missing his rotation due to a severe cold, but he did finish the year much stronger. However, his record was only 2-3, due mostly to Tech's well-documented defensive support. In spite of his lackluster pitching record, he was still among the top Yellow Jacket pitchers that year and was awarded his letter and became a wearer of the T. In the spring of 1930, Tech coach Kid Clay handed Bill a letter from J.F. McMillan of Cocoa, Florida, stating that he needed a certain pitcher for the upcoming Summer League. So at the end of the school year, Strickland headed to Cocoa, Florida to play ball for the locals. That move would change his life forever. It was common practice for the citrus packing houses in the Cocoa area to offer jobs to the out-of-town ball players to keep them in town during winter months so that they could play ball the next season. Bill was hired by the American Fruit Growers Company and spent the early season pruning citrus groves. When the packing houses opened up, he worked as a packer at 8 cents a box. By the end of the baseball season, Bill had taken his first job in the citrus industry that would eventually occupy the next 50 years of his life. And he met and fell in love with Miss Eleanor Weinberg. The following year, on June 26, 1931, in the middle of the baseball season, Bill and Eleanor were married. For the next 2 years, Strickland continued to work at the American Fruit Growers Packing House and playing baseball for the Cocoa and Sanford semi-pro teams. In the spring of 1933, Morris Weinberg, Bill's father-in-law, contacted the Cincinnati Reds about his great right-hander that was dominating the semi-pro teams in the Florida East Coast League. The Reds agreed to take a look at Strickland in a few exhibition games in Tampa. Reds manager Donnie Bush was impressed with what he saw and signed Bill to his first professional contract. Bill was assigned to Cincinnati's newly acquired Class B club, the Rock Island, Illinois Islanders of the Mississippi Valley League. His rookie season was pretty strong, pitching in 33 games with a 15-11 record in spite of nagging health problems. With a strong rookie year under his belt, Rock Island had great hopes for Strickland in 1934. But the league folded and the Rock Islanders were without a major league affiliate. In 1934, the Islanders joined up with the Class A Western League. Strickland had a fresh start and showed he could pitch steady when healthy, earning a 14-7 record, 5th in the league. And that is how Rock Island finished in 1934, in 5th place. With 3 solid starting pitchers, Rock Island began the 1935 season with high hopes, but immediately shot to the bottom. They were only 19-46 by mid-July, and the team was in turmoil. Players weren't being paid and began quitting, including Strickland. He finally ended the 1935 season playing semi-pro ball with the Cocoa Indians and was named to the Central Florida League All-Star team. During his off-season in the winter of 1935, he was still working in the citrus business, now as an assistant manager of shipping with the Berrien Packing Company in Berrien County, Florida. In the spring of 1936, he decided to test his talents against the hotbed of young baseball stars and seasoned professionals in the Outlaw Leagues of North Carolina. Outlaw Leagues were formed using professional players under contract or had been under contract with other professional teams, contrary to professional rules. But the money was good, and Strickland landed with the Rutherford County Owls. Bill finished the season as being one of the top 5 pitchers in the North Carolina Independent League, but he changed teams 4 times during the course of the season. Afraid of being banned from professional baseball by the National Baseball Players League, Strickland gave up on the Outlaw Leagues. Early in 1937, he got on with the Beaver Falls Bees, a D-level affiliate of the Boston Bees. However, he only pitched in 5 games and was dropped from their roster by mid-June. But good fortune came his way when the St. Louis Browns of the American League picked him up to pitch batting practice. Throughout the 1930s, the St. Louis Browns were notorious cellar dwellers of the American League. In 15 years, they never finished above next to last place. An often repeated lyric in the baseball world chided the Browns: first in shoes, first in booze, last in the American League. This lyric was in reference to two well-known, successful Browns companies, the Brown Shoe Company, maker of the Buster Brown shoes, and the Brown-Forman Company, who produced America's first bottled bourbon. Strickland was signed by the Browns in July 1937 during the All-Star break. As usual, the Browns were mired in the cellar, halfway through the season and already 20 games out of first place. Bill Strickland made his major league pitching debut on July 16th with a one-inning performance against the Boston Red Sox. He retired the sides, no runs, no hits, no strikeouts. The Browns lost 4-6. His next outing came 4 days later, on July 20th, against the Yankees at St. Louis. Again, it was a one-inning affair, giving up a walk, one hit, and one strikeout. No runs, but the Yankees won 9-6. The next day, after dropping a doubleheader to the Yankees and falling 29 games out of first place, the Browns' Hall of Fame player-manager Roger Hornsby was suddenly fired. He was replaced by Jim Bottomley. Bottomley tried to rally the team morale and encourage the players to strive harder, promising not to make any major changes in the lineup. By adding some new, more youthful players, the Browns hoped to turn the season around. They won the next 2 games, then lost 13 straight. The next outing for Strickland, 5 days later, didn't help the Browns out a bit. In 6 innings, he was tagged for 7 hits, 2 home runs, and the Browns fielders made 3 errors. Washington won 16-10. That brought his next appearance on July 30th with Joe DiMaggio and the Yankees. Though his strikeout of the future Hall of Famer made history in his hometown in Georgia, it did little to halt the slide of the 1937 Browns. By September, the Browns had securely established ownership of the basement of the league, and Strickland became owner of a new 1937 Chevrolet from a local St. Louis dealership. On September 8, 1937, at Sportsman's Park in St. Louis, Bill Strickland faced the Chicago White Sox for 1 inning, giving up 5 runs on 3 hits, walking 1. It was his last appearance in the major leagues. In his 1937 season with the St. Louis Browns, Bill Strickland pitched 21 innings in 9 games, gave up 28 hits, 2 home runs, 15 base-on balls, and had 6 strikeouts. He was not a pitcher of record in any of his games. He never pitched in a game that was won by the Browns. Returning home to Cocoa, Florida in the winter of 1937, Bill was still a St. Louis Brown and fully expected to be pitching for the Browns again in the 38th season. Reporting for spring training, he was issued a wife's pass for Eleanor for the upcoming 1938 Browns season. But on April 29, 1938, Bill Strickland received the notice any major league player fears, his notice of release. Strickland was assigned to play for the Dallas Steers, then was quickly sold to the San Antonio Missions of the Texas A1 Minor League. Lack of playing time with the Browns in the 1937 season and spring of 1938 was evident in Strickland's first couple of months with the Missions. He finished the season with a dismal 4-8 record. Much of his underperformance was due to the shoulder injury that came on a rainy night in the late summer when he slipped and fell on it after going after a high infield chopper. He finished out the game, but his arm was never quite the same again. Strickland's season with the Missions proved to be a pivotal time for the remainder of his baseball career. The owners brought in veteran Ray Brubaker as the third manager of the 1938 San Antonio season. Brubaker was impressed with the maturity and work ethic of the big right-hander. At the end of the season, Bill returned home to Florida, taking a position with the Cocoa Merritt Island Citrus Association as manager of local sales and shipping, not knowing where he would end up playing in the spring of 1939. The 1939 season had been full swing for over a month before Strickland signed with the cellar-dwelling Savannah Indians of the B-level South Atlantic League. After a slow start, by mid-July he had appeared in 12 games, winning 3. The Indians had won 12 straight and moved into first place. Savannah clinched the pennant in September, with Bill Strickland being the key element of their success. Though they lost the final series against Augusta, Strickland had finished his best season since his major league exit. Strickland's success in 1939 did not go unnoticed by his former manager, Ray Brubaker. Brubaker was now managing the Winston-Salem Twins, perennial cellar dwellers of the B-level Piedmont League. When he was putting together his pitching staff for the 1940 season, Brubaker purchased Strickland's contract from Savannah. But in spite of decent pitching from Strickland, the Twins still finished the 1940 season at the bottom of the league. Strickland was rewarded a watch from a local jeweler for having the best pitching record on the club, 9 wins and 9 losses. In 1941, Brubaker had moved to Elmira, New York as manager of the Elmira Pioneers, an affiliate of the Detroit Tigers and the A-Class Eastern League. As at Winston-Salem, Brubaker was faced with rebuilding a team filled mostly with youngsters and end-of-career players. But he also had 2 standouts who would become Hall of Famers, Eddie Robinson and Sal Magley. And again, to help Magley anchor his pitching staff, Brubaker brought in Bill Strickland, the only pitcher with any major league experience on the club. That 1941 Elmira Pioneers would be the most successful team that Strickland ever played on. Though Bill suffered with health issues again this season, his relief roles on the mound proved to be a great asset to the team. The Pioneers went on to win the Governor's Cup Championship Series. Hopes that a strong, healthy 42 season would boost his chances at a return to the big leagues were dashed on December 7, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor and the United States entered World War II. When the 42 season opened, the Pioneers were not the same team. Sal Magley had moved up to Double-A ball for the New York Giants, and Eddie Robinson had moved to Cleveland and was playing in the majors by year's end. The pitching staff for the Pioneers was weaker, and though Strickland had a decent year, the arm was bothering him a lot more. The Pioneers only finished the season 3rd from the bottom of the league. Everyone was in war mode by the winter of 42, and it was time for Bill Strickland to look at his future career. He had spent the past 10 years in baseball, but he was now older than most players. Together, Bill and Eleanor decided it was time to hang it up. In 1943, the Wilkes-Barre Record reported that shortstop Lou Regino and pitcher Bill Strickland of Elmira are in the Army. But the U.S. government and the Selective Service Board had other plans for Strickland. His position as packing house manager for the Cocoa Merritt Island Citrus Association was deemed essential to the war effort. Bill spent the duration of the war stateside, seeing that America and the troops had adequate citrus produce. 5 years later, in 1948, Bill and Eleanor welcomed the birth of their only child, Bill Jr. Over the next 30 years, Bill Strickland became one of the foremost authorities on shipping, selling, marketing, and development of the Florida citrus industry. On October 8, 1956, Bill was in New York negotiating a very important agreement with the citrus auction market. He also had tickets for Game 5 of the World Series between the Yankees and the Dodgers. He especially wanted to watch his old teammate Sal Magley of the Brooklyn Dodgers, who was the starting pitcher in Game 5. However, World Series games in 1956 were played in the daytime. Bill had hoped to finish early enough to attend the game, but the citrus auction negotiations dragged on well into the evening. He was elated with his ultimate success with the market agreement, but was disappointed that he had missed witnessing baseball history. You see, Sal Magley was pitching against the young Yankees right-hander, Don Larson. Sal Magley pitched a beautiful game, allowing only 2 runs on 5 hits. But Don Larson was even better that day. As a matter of fact, he was perfect. 27 batters faced him, 27 batters sat down. Not a single one reached base. Strickland had missed seeing the only perfect game ever pitched in World Series history. But as disappointed as he was in missing the game, he was more elated with the citrus agreement. He had moved beyond his baseball career. Bill Strickland retired from the Florida Citrus Packers in 1978. In 1988, he was recognized for his lifelong contribution to the Florida citrus industry by being inducted into the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame. Bill and Eleanor lived out their last years at the estates at Carpenters in Lakeland, Florida. In the hallway of their home, the only remembrance of his 10-year baseball career was an 8x10 photo of him in his St. Louis Browns uniform. In fact, he was always prized of Eleanor's prize-winning floral arrangements and her delicious recipes made from his lifetime product, oranges. Bill Strickland passed away January 26, 2000, at the age of 92. Eleanor passed away in August 2002. They were brought back to his Georgia hometown and laid to rest alongside his parents in the Pleasant Cemetery at New Lois, just a few miles from his boyhood home. Bill Strickland was one of thousands of young ball players who dreamed of playing in the major leagues. He spent 10 years in the pros and only played in 9 major league games. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame, not for his baseball career, but for his lifetime achievement in the citrus industry. As the years go by, fewer and fewer hometown folks recall his name. But those who do will tell you, he made it to the big leagues, and he struck out Joe DiMaggio on 3 straight pitches.